Welcome into Cozy's Ghost Adventures. Today I'm going to tell you a story. In a small, forgotten village nestled deep into the woods, there was an old inn that hadn't seen a guest in years. The innkeeper, he was a weathered man. His name was Thomas. He lived alone in the place for decades, all by himself. He often heard stories of strange shit happening in the area, but always shrugged them off as mere superstition. But then, on one cold winter night, a traveler arrived at the inn. He's like, "Oh my God! Where did this traveler come from?" His face was pale, his eyes sunken, and he spoke with a strange accent that Thomas had never heard before. Ever. He asked for a room. He spoke with a strange accent that Thomas had never heard before. I said that already. Thomas, though slightly uneasy, led him upstairs to a room that hadn't been used in years. Thomas didn't even clean this freaking room. It was just an old room filled with dust and who knows what else. As the traveler unpacked his stuff, Thomas noticed something very odd. Very, very odd. The air around him was unnaturally cold, even for a winter night. So, when the man closed the door to his room, Thomas swore he heard faint whispers coming from within. The innkeeper tried to shake it off. It ain't nothing but a chicken wing. It ain't nothing but a chicken wing. But as the night wore on, the whispers grew louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. In the dead of the night, Thomas could no longer ignore the eerie sound that he kept hearing. He approached the door, did a little knock-knock, gently. There was no answer. He was very worried at this point. He slowly turned the knob and stepped inside the room to check in on the guests. Oh, sure as shit, guys. This is what happens next. The room was completely empty. The bed was undisturbed. And the only sound was the wind howling outside. But then, something caught his eye. It's a very small, old-fashioned mirror hanging on the wall. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell us the scariest tale of all. It was a mirror that hadn't been there before, ever. And certainly wasn't there earlier in the night. Thomas's heart was racing, approached the mirror and gasped. Staring back at him from the glass was the traveler through the mirror. But his face wasn't the one he'd seen earlier. It was decayed, like a corpse. And behind him stood the shape of a woman, her face obscured by a vial holding what looked like a bloody knife in her hand. Ew! Terrified, as you can only imagine, guys. If you're still watching, the story gets crazier. Thomas ran downstairs, but as he did, he heard the door to the room creak open behind him. He looked over his shoulder and saw the man, no longer alive, walking slowly down the hall towards him. His footsteps were heavy and dragging right in his direction. The last thing, and I mean the last thing that Thomas saw before the lights flickered and the inn plunged into darkness, was the shadow of the veiled woman emerging from the doorway. Her eyes were burning with an unearthly glow. Shit you not, rumor has it at the inn was never found again after that night. Never found again. Some say it still stands in the woods, though, waiting for the next unlikely soul to wander its way in. The end. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want more ghost stories. Comment down below. See you guys later.